Good morning, Year 8. I hope you enjoyed our Gothic story, ghost storytelling lesson yesterday. I've really enjoyed watching some of your examples, and hopefully you've all seen who the winner is. So as a starter today, I'd like you to think about, all of these lines come from the same classic Gothic story. I'd like you to try and decide what you think is happening at this point based on these quotations. So we've got, I drew back behind the stonework and looked carefully out. I am in fear, in awful fear, and there is no escape for me. I was at first interested and somewhat amused. All sorts of horrible imaginings. The dreadful abyss, face down. I saw the whole man slowly emerge. So do you know what could be happening in today's text? What do you think might be happening? Okay, give yourself 5 minutes to have a think about this. So don't worry, I'm not going to leave you on the edge of your seats for much longer. This is a piece of the text Dracula by Bram Stoker. Okay, so the narrator Jonathan Harker has been acting as a lawyer for the mysterious Count Dracula. He finds himself increasingly a prisoner in the Count's Transylvanian castle. So what we're going to do is have a quick read through this paragraph here, and I want you to think back to our last couple of lessons together, and I want you to see if you can identify any of the features of Gothic fiction in the paragraph above. Okay, so when he left me, I went to my room. After a little while, not hearing any sound, I came out and went up the stone stair to where I could look out towards the south. There was some sense of freedom in the vast expanse, inaccessible though it was to me, as compared with the narrow darkness of the courtyard. Looking out on this, I felt that I was indeed in prison, and I seemed to want a breath of fresh air, though it were of the night. I am beginning to feel this nocturnal existence tell on me. It is destroying my nerve. So give yourself 5 minutes now to have a think about whether you can identify any key features of Gothic fiction in the paragraph above. As I've said before, if you can print it out and highlight on it, that's fantastic. If not, just write quotations out in your book for me and tell me what it is you think is Gothic about that example. Great, so hopefully you've had a think about some of the devices from the last couple of lessons that we've discussed, and hopefully you were able to pick some out of this paragraph. I'm just quickly going to go over the answers, so make sure that you mark yours if you've done it in your books, and just make sure that you're making, notes on all of this. So the first thing I highlighted was this section here, so not hearing any sound. So we know that obviously silence, that ominous atmosphere, that eerie atmosphere is a Gothic fiction trait, and the fact that obviously Jonathan Harker isn't able to hear anything adds to that kind of evil, sinister tone. The stone stairs. Okay, we've spoken about how Gothic fiction often links back to medieval architecture, and obviously stone stairs were a part of that, so it quite, well fits into the settings of Gothic fiction. Inaccessible though it was to me, so he's talking about freedom and the fact that he doesn't have it, and that's backed up by this fact that he is indeed in prison. So this idea of someone being trapped against, being held against their will is very obvious here, which is obviously a Gothic fiction trait. The darkness of the courtyard, so anything to do with that kind of dark tone, the idea of the courtyard being in darkness, so dark places obviously make us think that bad things are going to happen. That links in with the night as well, and this idea of a nocturnal existence. There's a reason, obviously, if you know about Dracula, there's a reason for why he's always up at night and not in the day. But again, nighttime, bad things happen at nighttime, those sorts of insinuations here. And then this idea of kind of destroying my nerve, it's kind of that fall, isn't it, of our hero, and obviously the fact that he's kind of descending into this madness, and that he's not got his nerve anymore. So lots of Gothic fiction traits that we looked at last lesson evident in this paragraph. So what we're going to have a look at this lesson are tension building techniques that are used in Gothic fiction. Now obviously Gothic fiction lends itself to lots of kind of jump scares, plot twists. Lots of tension building is needed though for those things to be as dramatic as they should be. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at these tension building techniques. So we're going to have a think about holding back information. So you might know of it as being show don't tell. We're going to have a think about contrasts. So contrasts means two opposite things being used next to each other, or thinking about things in two opposing ways. The narrator's emotional reaction, so specifically telling us how the character is feeling, and focuses on strange details, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the paragraph with you that we've just looked at, and we're going to look for these details. And then your job for the rest of the lesson is going to be to have a look at some others and see if you can do the same. So, and also unanswered questions. So I would like you to have a look through on your own to start with. So which of these techniques for creating tension can you find in the opening extract from Dracula? Okay. So I will give you 5 minutes to have a go at that, and then we're going to move on to the next slide and we're going to go through it. Okay then, so the first one you should have recognised is the use of contrasts, okay? So the line that says, there was some sense of freedom in that vast expanse, inaccessible though it was to me as compared with the narrow darkness of the courtyard. So the contrast being that there's a vast expanse, so a large space that provides freedom, but he is trapped in this narrow darkness within the courtyard, okay? So those two are opposing ideas, so a huge empty space compared to a small, narrow, confining space, okay? So that's one tension technique that they have used in Dracula. The second one is the narrator's emotional reaction. So I'm beginning to feel this nocturnal existence tell on me it is destroying my nerve. So the narrator speaks about his emotions, and that then gives us a kind of a sense of to the fear that this character is feeling from living this existence with Count Dracula. So a narrator's emotional reaction is a very good way of building tension, because if he feels it's destroying his nerve, we're worried if he's going to have that kind of mental breakdown sooner rather than later. And unanswered questions. So I felt that I was indeed in prison, and I seemed to want a breath of fresh air, though it were of the night. So there's lots of kind of strange details here as well with this unanswered question. So this idea that he was indeed in prison, is he actually in prison, or why does he feel like he's in prison? There's this idea of obviously wanting a breath of fresh air. Well, surely if you're looking out the window, you are getting a breath of fresh air, so that doesn't really make sense either. And then this idea of him wanting the night. Why is the night such a big kind of part of this tale, you know, and what is the insinuation behind it? So lots of tension building techniques used by Bram Stoker in the creation of Dracula. And obviously it helps to build up that kind of eerie, sinister tone that we're looking for in Gothic fiction. So what you are going to do now is you are going to have the choice of 3 paragraphs that are on the following slides. What I'd like you to do is read through them and annotate them with the tension techniques. So as we've discussed before, some of you might not be able to print off the extracts, which is absolutely fine. But what you can do is write out the quotation in your book and tell me which of the features it's used. So you're looking for the same features that we've just looked at, okay? So holding back information, contrasts, narrator's emotional reaction, a focus on strange details, and unanswered questions. So you are going to pick one of the following paragraphs on the following slides, and you are going to annotate these details. Now obviously if you finish it and we're nowhere near the end of the lesson, then have a go at picking a second one and doing the same task. But the idea is that this is all I'd like us to do for this lesson, is think about the tension techniques that are used by obviously the narrators in this story. And then what we're going to do next lesson is we'll go over them together and have a look through some of the answers, and then that's going to feed into your first Gothic fiction piece of writing. Okay, make sure you answer today's Show My Homework quiz, and make sure you complete this task.